Welcome back to the Man2Man podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Chapman, alongside my co-host,
Carson Chapman.
And this is episode 2. But today we have a very special guest. This guy has been in me and Carson's life for over 23 years now. He has been such an inspiration to both of us. A one-time regional champion as a coach, 23-time Dad of the Year.
Some might say the greatest sports mind of our generation.
I would have to agree with that. So let's go ahead and bring in our guest, our father, Edward Chapman.
Mr. Ed Chapman.
Mr. Ed
Woo!
Chapman. Wow. Dad, what do you have to say for yourself?
Welcome to the show.
I just want to remind you, I'm not actually of your generation. I'm the reason that you have a generation. But anyway,
that is very true.
It's important. It's important for us to still feel connected. So I like it.
Yeah,
you make me feel young.
Good. That's good to hear. So today we're going to start out with the weekly segment here on the Man2Man podcast. It is called Tourney Time. Today's Tourney Time was actually created by our dad. And it is Cardinals postseason moments of the 2000. As you see, we're all rocking Cardinals gear right now. Saturday,
ready for October.
Yeah, Saturday, we're actually going to Game 2 of the Wild Card Series. So Redbirds better not disappoint like they did last time when we went there. Max Scherzer nearly threw, was it no-hitter or perfect game?
No-hitter.
Yeah. Almost a no-hitter. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So Dad, he made the 16 greatest moments of the 2000s postseason moments. But we're going to go ahead and start with our honorable mentions. So Carson, why don't you go ahead and talk about the first one?
So the first one we have as honorable mention is Alan Craig's interference in the 2013 World Series. If you remember, this was a Saturday home game that we had. A lot of controversy here against the Red Sox. Have a play where Alan Craig's rounding third base. We have him running into people. Throw goes down the line. Alan Craig scores. A lot of people didn't know how to understand that or what the rule was supposed to be, what the official was supposed to call there. But the Cardinals luck out there, and that was one that sticks with us. But it was in a losing effort for those World Series chances.
That is true. So, Dad, let's go ahead and talk about the second honorable mention, which was the 10 runs in the first inning of Game 5 of the NLDS. You can go ahead and take the microphone from Carson.
Yeah, that was the exciting series against the Braves where the Cardinals had to come from behind. They had won game 4 at home to extend the series back to Atlanta, and then with all the nerves and all the excitement of a winner-take-all Game 5, the Cardinals just end all the drama right away with a 10-run first inning. Everybody can relax and celebrate, and so a huge postseason moment. Of course, it led to us using up all of our hits and all of our runs.
It died.
Nothing carried over.
Going into the sweep that followed against the Nationals, but hey, it was cool while it lasted.
It was very cool. And then our last honorable mention was Michael Wacha in the NLCS. 23-year-old, pitches an absolute gem against the Dodgers. Just had the changeup going that day. Made a potent Dodgers lineup just look absolutely silly. So those are our 3 honorable mentions. So let's go ahead and get into the bracket. So we got the 1 seed. Now this is sort of kind of a controversial 1 seed, but
I would say so.
I would say, Dad, you were right in the mark with this. So the 1 seed is the 2011 Game 6 World Series, the David Freese triple against the infield fly at Atlanta between who was that short? Was Cosma?
Peter Cosma.
Cosma and
Matt Holliday.
Matt Holliday.
Yeah.
Dad, I'll let you go ahead and talk about the infield fly, and then me and Carson can kind of tackle the triple.
Okay, 16 seed. It gets remembered. It was in a season where the Cardinals won the next round after slipping in at the wild card and having to go on the road to Atlanta. They were up 3 runs in the 8th. The tying run was at the plate, and he hits the fly ball to the left, shallow left. Cosma calls for it. The umpire calls infield fly. And, of course, then at that moment, Cosma's lost it. Holliday's nowhere around.
Is Matt Holliday the worst left fielder in Cardinals history?
Well, he didn't. Yeah. I don't know if he's the worst, but he got exposed in the playoffs the most.
He also took one off the nuts against the Dodgers.
That's right. He had a rough go of it a couple times. So anyway, 16 seed, a memorable and painful one for our Atlanta Braves friends. The Brannons.
Sorry, Jonah.
Tony. We're sorry. Yeah, they were at that game, and I'm not sure if they threw anything on the field, but a lot of people did. But up against the number 1 seed, David Freese's triple with 2 outs, 2 strikes in the 9th, down by 2 runs. off Neftali Feliz,
which was the best closer in the game.
Yeah,
that
he
year.
was, and he was so hot and had been so untouchable in that postseason. So, thanks Nelson Cruz for coming in a little
Horrible
bit.
fielder. Horrible fielder.
Nelson was trying to get an early jump on the mosh pit, thinking that the third out was about to be made, and Freeze drove it over his head. And if you don't get that 2-run triple, then you don't get one of these other moments later on.
Exactly. So I think this is in unison. All three of us are going to go with the 1 seed, the game tying triple from David Freeze, the bottom of the ninth. So Carson, I'm sure you're going David Freeze.
Yeah. A lot of people might think that, hey, boys, why Man2Man podcast? Why would you pick this over the Freeze home run that actually won you Game 6? No. We don't get there. Like Dad said, if you don't respond when you're down to your last strike in the ninth inning off the best closer in the game, after David Freeze had already made some fielding errors, he makes up for it in the ninth inning and laces one off the right field wall, and the game was tied 7-7.
Unbelievable. So the next matchup we're going to go is the 8 versus 9. So the 8-seeded Jim Edmonds walk-off home run versus the 9-seeded Albert Pujols 3-run home run. 3 home runs in the World Series against the Rangers. So Dad, I don't remember much from the Edmonds walk-off. I'm sure Carson doesn't remember much. So
He's got a good Edmonds story.
Yeah, go ahead and talk
Young
about
guy.
Edmonds here.
Young guy. Well, hey, the sad part about this Edmund story is that I was working on my master's and had a class with Bruce Lane, and I believe it was Joe DeBella. Coach Joe DeBella was holding us in class, and we missed the end of this afternoon game that turned into an early evening game. And Edmonds in extra innings hit a walk-off in Game 6, which obviously the Cardinals were down 3-2, so that's a huge moment. That gets seeded fairly high with the 8 seed. The 9 seed, Albert, you can't deny the fact that a 3-homer game in the World Series is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Only Babe Ruth and Reggie Jackson and who? The Panda?
Sandoval.
He later matched that feat, but Albert doing that, it was a win. It was one of the wins.
It was a blowout.
Yeah, it was a win that the Cardinals, took a 2-1 lead early in the series before falling behind in the series. But if I had to pick, and I did by seeding them, so I would give Edmonds the slight nod, because that season could have ended if he hadn't hit that home run to push us to Game 7.
So I think my pick here, and honestly, it's just because I remember the Pujols 3 home runs more than the Edmonds one. What was I, 2 years old when Edmonds hit this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Pujols, technically an upset, 9-seeded over 8 seed. Pujols 3 home runs in the World Series. Carson, what are you going with?
I'm also going to take Pujols here. If you'll remember, Pujols has had a terrible start to those first 2 games in St. Louis. We had the Texas for Game 3 here, or is Game 3, right?
Yeah.
Game 3, Texas ballpark that is very friendly to hitters. You're going to have a lot of runs there. And I was actually at Preston English's birthday party that night, and I just kept getting word that, of course, we didn't all have smartphones back then, but Pujols was doing his thing. The machine was back, and he takes down Edmonds in this one for me.
All right, so next matchup, we got the 5 versus the 12. We have the Yachty Game 7 of the NLCS 2006 against the Mets, and then in 2012, Matt Adams. 2014, Matt Adams against Clayton Kershaw. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Matt Adams home run. This game, I believe, was 0-0, correct? And
No, we were down 2-0.
Or sorry, down 2-0.
In the 7th
Yeah,
inning.
we just couldn't get anything going. Big city, lefty against obviously the best pitcher in the league at the time was Clayton Kershaw. Hangs a curveball. Matt Adams sends one to their bullpen. Our bullpen. Let's go ahead and talk about the Yachty homer.
Can I just add one thing to the Matt Adams home run there? Let's not forget his vertical after that home run.
That's
He
right.
jumps
He
about
got
a
up.
whole 3 inches off the ground. The vertical from Matt Adams right there lets you know that he was feeling it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Yadier Molina home run in Game 7 of the 06 LCS. This is what leads up to Wainwright striking out Beltran, freezes him in the ninth, and we'll get to talking about that a little bit later. But if you'll remember, at this point, Yadier Molina was not established as a hitter. He was coming in as somebody that was supposed to receive well, throw out runners, very much known for his defense. And he just got it over the wall, just over the outstretched glove of Indy Chavez,
That's right.
I believe, in left field. So Yadi advances here, takes down the 12 seed. Yadier Molina home run, Game 7. Dad, what's your pick?
Well, I mean, I'm most likely going to follow the chalk, considering I'm the one that seeded all these.
When you establish the bracket.
But, the cool thing about the Molina home run is that Chavez had stolen a home run from Roland earlier in the game in the very same spot. Ninth inning, 1-1, runner on, and Molina out of nowhere, lightning strikes. You take a 3-1 lead to go to the bottom of the ninth, and you silence Shea Stadium, which was way cool when you hit these moments in the Bronx or in Queens. That's really cool. So as cool as Matt Adams and as unexpected maybe as it was for him to hit the go-ahead homer lefty on lefty, I got to go with Molina.
Yeah.
Game 7
I mean,
propels you to the World Series.
I mean, that Mets team was stacked. Beltran, Delgado, Jose Reyes. That team had some studs. And so the unsung hero, I'll also go with Yadier Molina's Game 7 homer. So 4 versus 13 matchup. We're going same game
This one's juicy.
the same game as the Yadi homer. This was the Waino strikeout against Beltran. Uncle Charlie just hums one in there and got Beltran looking silly versus the 13 seed Chris Carpenter complete game at Philly. You talked a little bit about the Waino strikeout, so go ahead and touch on that more.
I'm fired up about this one. This was the 4 versus 13 that catches my eye right away. When you get those brackets in March, you're looking for the upset. This is one that stuck out to me, and the first thing I said when I looked at this was, if Chris Carpenter wasn't matched up against Wainwright, I'd probably take him a long way. I just remember so many things about that 2011 game where Chris Carpenter goes in Game 5 against Philadelphia. It was a Friday night. Me and Jackson were still at Benton Elementary with Mom. I think we come in. Dad was home from practice. We got us some Papa John's pizza. If you know us, that's a tradition.
That's right.
So cold, chilly night in Philadelphia, and so Chris Carpenter naturally is rocking his 3/4 shirt, and he just absolutely shoved. He shoved that night. I think he gave up some runs early.
No.
That
was
nothing.
No, it was complete
1-0.
game shutout.
That's right.
Yeah,
Complete game
shutout.
We scored early.
We
scored early in the
First batter of the game.
Yeah, triple.
He tripled and
for
Skip.
call.
That's right.
Skip drove him home.
And that was enough for Chris Carpenter that night. He had his game face on. He was all about it. At that time, I believe the Phillies were probably the most potent team in the NL. And so taking down what was probably the giant of the postseason that year and then leading to that historical 2011 run, I'm taking the upset. Chris Carpenter upsets Wainwright.
We'll go to Dad now.
Wow. I mean, that's tough. I mean, obviously Wainwright's signature moment that he has early in his career, at the moment he struck Beltran out to end that NLCS and send us to the World Series, which we won against Detroit. Yep. Wainwright had never made a start. And now 328 or 9 starts later, he and Molina hold the record.
That's crazy.
So crazy. Yeah. Crazy that he never had a start at that moment. He had the bases loaded against Beltran with 2 outs. So the winning run is at first. So any extra base hit ends the season.
It's not like Beltran's no slug.
He is
a stud.
That's right. And his postseason history at that point had already been well established in his run with Houston. I know I love Chris Carpenter as much as I love Adam Wainwright. And Carpenter 1-0 at Philly, matched up against the late, great Roy Halladay, Hall of Famer. The Cardinals scratch 1 in the first, and Carp won't let them have any.
Right.
A 3-hit shutout. A Philly team that I think had won 102 games that year.
They were in the World Series the year before.
Right. They were 12 games better than the Cardinals, record-wise. And Ryan Howard tears his Achilles on the last play of the game.
I was going to mention that. That's right.
And honest to goodness, the Phillies were never the same.
That's right.
Honest to goodness.
Broke them.
But the iconic Wainwright moment cannot be defeated in this moment right here. I got to go with Waino.
I'm also going to go Waino. Just That's kind of like my first memory as a Cardinals fan right there. So I'm going to go Wayno as well. So we won't talk too much about this one. I feel like this one's pretty easy. But 2-seeded versus 15 seed. The 2-seed Lance Berkman game time single in the Game 6 World Series against the Rangers, and then the 15 seed Rally Squirrel Schumacher. Rally Squirrel's cute and all, but I think you got to go Berkman game time.
Yeah, let's not reinvent the wheel here, Jack. Berkman in the World Series, we're down. He's facing a guy in the 10th inning.
Yeah, it was the 10th.
10th inning. Berkman down to his last strike and just saws him off, gets it to center field and gets the run home. I think that's a moment that lives in Cardinal history forever. He gets overshadowed so much by what Freese did in the 9th and in the 11th, but let's not forget Berkman coming up clutch in the 10th.
Right. If Berkman can't get that hit right there, if he makes an out, there is no Freese walk-off homer.
Right.
There's no championship.
That's right.
There's no championship. The series is over at that moment. So his base hit in the 10th when we had to retie the game after Josh Hamilton had hit
and the losing pitcher would have been Jason Mott.
That's right. Our buddy Jason Mott would have lost the game. But, so Berkman's hit is so critical for where it happened. The Rally Squirrel's cute and all. And again, it was the moment in that series that really didn't turn it around. We didn't actually score in the Rally Squirrel inning.
Oh, wow.
When he ran across the field while Schumacher was at the plate.
Encyclopedia.
Of course he knows.
It should have actually been the first David Freese game. Freese had hit a 2-run double earlier off Roy Oswalt and hits a 2-run homer later. But the Rally Squirrel got all the attention, but he can't win this matchup.
No.
Berkman's single wins the day.
So 7-10 matchup. I actually don't know much about these. Again, this is before my time. I was still a little baby. But 7 seed Scott Rowland home run over Roger Clemens in the Game 7. And then we've got 10-seeded Jim Edmonds catch, and also Game 7. I do remember the Jim Edmonds catch, just how crazy it was. But I'm not going to talk much about this, so I'll just go with the Edmonds catch because I actually remember that one.
And I'm, just before I give the mic to Dad, because he can set the stage for you on this one, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Rowan, hitting a home run off Roger Clemens, probably the most well-regarded pitcher of that era, and just a dominant force on the mound. He gets a home run off of him, and that is a series that the Cardinals ended up winning and heading to the 04 World Series.
Right, so, Roland's in a situation up against the future Hall of Famer. Game was tied 2-2 in the 6th. Cardinal legend Jeff Suppan was matching Clemens and had us in a 2-2 game at that point. And, Roland lines one down the left field line, just over the wall, gives us a 2-run lead that we go on to win that Game 7. Previously in that game, Edmonds had made the incredible catch in left center with a diving catch with his back toward home plate against Brad Ausmus. It wasn't necessarily a game-saving play, but they did have runners at first and second at the moment, and so it saved things from getting away from us. We were already down 1-0 at that point. But I'll give the nod to Roland's home run off a surefire Hall of Famer minus the roids, Clemens, and being such a key moment. Plus, Roland needed a little love in here. He
He hasn't got much,
he
but-
needed to get mentioned here. He's a Cardinal Hall of Famer.
So the 6-11 matchup, in March Madness, I feel like a lot of people will always pick the 11 seed, but this 6-11 matchup is a no contest.
It's not your normal 6'11".
6 seed Albert Pujols home run off for Brad Ledge versus the 11 seed Pete Kozma double against the Nationals. I don't really think we have to talk much about this. Pujols hits one out of the Astrodome. Or not the Astrodome, but whatever.
Minute Maid,
yeah. Pujols there.
Jackson mentioned one of those moments earlier being his first vivid memory as a Cardinals fan. Dad can elaborate on it a little bit more as well, but this Pujols home run off Ledge in Game 5 of the 2005 NLDS is probably my most vivid memory as a Cardinals fan. I was in kindergarten, and Dad did what he wasn't supposed to do and let me stay up too late to watch this ball game. Mom is already asleep, and I'm watching the ball game in Mom and Dad's bed. And if you know me, Dad constantly has to tell me to bring my volume down. And this was probably the first instance that he had to, because when Pujols hits that home run, I proceeded to scream at the top of my lungs. I'm running around the house. Mom wakes up thinking something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, Mom. Pujols just hit a ball that is about to land on the moon. So Pujols advances.
Obviously, Pujols' moment, the only thing that hurts it and why it dropped down in the seedings is because we turned around and lost the next game. and the series was over. But down 3-1 in Houston, the Astros are 1 out away from their first trip to the World Series.
Best closer in the league.
Yeah, Lidge is the best closer at the time, and they can taste the champagne. We at least made them delay it for a little while with a ball that just now landed on the moon. 17 years later. Now Pete Kozma's 2-run base hit in a tie game in Game 5, the game against the Nationals, in a Game 5, a deciding game. We were down 6-0 early. Wainwright got destroyed, and the guys came all the way back. Actually, Daniel Descalso got the 2-run single to tie the game, but Kozma was remembered for getting the hit that gave us the lead. But it can't compare with Pujols' moonshot.
I would agree. And then the last matchup of this first round, we have the 3-seeded David Freese walk-off home run, Game 6, 2011 World Series, versus Matt Carpenter's double off of Clayton Kershaw. Was this the NLCS as well?
It was the DS.
DS, okay.
3-run double.
3-run double. Freese.
Yeah, Freese has 2 moments in the top 3 here as we ranked. Just a very memorable game. Most would say Game 6 of the 2011 World Series is the greatest postseason game ever played. And fortunately, the Cardinals came out on the winning end of that. Freese, like I said, he has the triple that answers his error early in the game, but he does it again in the 11th and sends us home a Cardinal winner. And we will see you tomorrow night. Freese
one
advances.
of the most iconic calls of all time, I would say.
Matt Carpenter, the part of his career that we all love to remember deserves some remembering. So, his greatest postseason moment was down 6-4. We had already scored some runs, but we're still down 6-4 against Kershaw in that game. That was Game 1 of the series. And when Carpenter cleared the bases of that double, that gave us hope that we could handle Kershaw. We ended up winning that game, and then later we won the next Kershaw start to win that series. But naturally up against David Freese's walk-off homer, no contest.
All right, so we're going to our Elite 8. So we're going to go 1-seeded, the Freese triple, versus me and Carson chose the Pujols 3 home run game in that same World Series. So let's quickly go through this. I'm gonna again choose the David Freese triple. Just so iconic, down 2, last strike, got us back into the game. I just remember vividly him on his knees on third base, just screaming his head off, and the whole dugout going crazy. St. Louis going crazy. So Freese triple over the 3 home run game.
Yeah, this postseason was the Freezer coming out party. He was, I believe, NLCS MVP in 2011, and then it carries over to the World Series. Me and Jackson actually got to meet David Freese earlier that season when he was a part-time player. Got his autograph, and that autograph was worth a lot more after Game 6. The Freese triple advances over the Pujols 3 home run game.
I had the Freese triple up against the Jim Edmonds Game 6 walk-off from the 04 NLCS, but of course, the Freese triple, I got to give that the edge. As cool as it is to remember the big moments of all these Cardinal Hall of Famers or will be Cardinal Hall of Famers, the guys like David Freese, who are maybe not ever going to be he's never going to necessarily be a red jacket guy, but he will never be forgotten. In that moment, you just can't beat it.
From St. Louis as well.
Yeah, that's right. Hometown guy. You just can't beat that. So marching on, Freezer.
So Freese triple gets into the Final Four. Our next matchup to decide the next Final Four replacement is actually from the same game. We have the 4-seed Waino strikeout against Beltran, and then in that same game, the 5-seed, the Yachty home run. And I think in terms of clutchness, I think we got to go Yachty here. I'm going Yachty here. Gives us the lead. Unsung hero. Yachty's one of my favorite Cardinal players of all time. I grew up a catcher. And I have a vivid memory from our Cardinals game where that one crazy drunk guy just screamed, Yachty, 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 yeah. And I will always love him for that. So I'm going to go 5-seed Yachty home run here.
So this is where I had the upset. I had Chris Carpenter taking down Wainwright in the first round. So it's Chris Carpenter, CG versus Philadelphia, going up against Yachty home run in Game 7. I'm going to go ahead and keep riding with Chris Carpenter. I'm going to take my upsets just like I did in the country music bracket. I'm taking Chris Carpenter. I believe the Shredder got a hold of him after that complete game in Philadelphia, and Chris Carpenter, Cardinal legend, he took care of business that night.
I'm hoping that Chris Carpenter never sees this or hears this, because I'm afraid he would hurt me because I picked against him in the first round, and I'm going to try to offset it here by sticking with a fellow pitcher, Wainwright. Again, to me, it's the signature Wainwright moment. I've got the Wainwright Foundation hat here, and he's got his arms extended the same way he did after the curveball froze Beltran. So I got to go with that.
That's a great call. Next matchup, we have the 2-7 matchup between the Lance Berkman game-tying single and then the Scott Rowland home run off Roger Clemens. I'm going to go Berkman here. Berkman looks 62 years old with that gray beard out in right field. Right. Just another clutch moment from him. So I'm going to go Berkman game-tying single.
Yeah, so Berkman, was that his first season in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Berkman, everybody thinks he's kind of washed up. He comes and is a pivotal part of that postseason run for the Cardinals. If you'll remember, in Game 6, did he have the home run that started? I think he had a home run early in Game 6. It was either Game 6 or Game 7.
7, I think.
Yeah, one of those two games, Berkman had a home run early, and then he bookends it in extra innings, being able to deliver. Berkman, the 2 seed, advances to the Final Four.
I'll stick with Berkman too, and I want to throw in another moment worth mentioning. When the Cardinals were once down 7-4 late in that Game 6, Alan Craig had come into the game for an injured Matt Holliday.
Yes.
And Craig hit a home run in the 8th, a solo homer to make it 7-5, which led to
a little bit more bearable.
Pujols getting on with a double. Berkman drew a walk, all that before freeze.
Okay.
And so, those are things you have to mention. And, of course, Game 6 is so crazy because the Cardinals are the only postseason team ever to score in the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th inning of a postseason game.
That's crazy.
And they kept having to come from behind to do it. So I stick with Berkman's single. It doesn't get quite enough love.
They walked Pujols before Berkman, right? They got to got to Berkman by walking Pujols in what could have been Albert's last at bat in Cardinal red.
Right.
Thankfully, he came back this year. But in what could have been Albert's last at bat of the 2011 season, they walk him, get to Berkman, and Berkman makes the pay.
So last matchup of the Elite Eight, we got the 3-seeded David Freese home run versus the 6-seed Pujols off of Lidge.
These are two Goliaths right here.
Two Goliaths, but in terms of my time as a Cardinals fan, I don't think there will ever be a more monumental moment than the Game 6 home run from David Freese. The Pujols home run is insanely clutch. It's probably the farthest home run that I've seen Pujols hit. But I got to go David Freese. We'll see you tomorrow night. Game 6, walk-off homer.
Yeah, this is part where I'm really torn. I remember so many of them so vividly. After that Freeze home run, I don't know how much sleep I got left before I went to school the next day, and I can tell you that when I showed up to Miss Young's science class on that Friday, the last thing on my mind was her science class, because I was thinking about David Freeze's home run the Thursday night before and what was going to happen in Game 7. And so David Freese home run, how could you forget it? He advances from the 3 seed.
I am very tempted to go with Pujols simply because I want representation spread
Pujols
out on my bracket, but yet I can't deny Freeze both of these moments. And again, if Alberts had led to more than just one win, if it had led to a series win or a World Series win, okay, but it didn't, and Freeze's did. And so Freeze's walk-off home run in the 11th inning of Game 6 must march on, even over the great Albert Pujols.
So, I think our Final Fours are just a little different because I think you have the Chris Carpenter moment in there.
So I have Freeze triple going up against the Matt Carpenter CG, and then I have the Freeze home run going up against
Berkman hit?
The Berkman. Yep.
And then I have the Yachty home run over as the 5
Are you all chalk, Dad?
Oh, yeah, I'm all chalk. I made the bracket.
Yeah. Dad's got the 1 through 4 seeds all advancing.
So 1-5 matchup for me. The Freeze triple versus the Yachty home run. Again, David Freese, St. Louis icon. You just can't put a price on how clutch that moment was. And I'm sure if someone got that game-winning or game-tying triple ball, I'm sure that would sell for a lot of money. But I'm going to go David Freese's triple to go to the championship.
Yeah, Chris Carpenter's been my darling here from the 13 seed all the way to the Final Four. But this is where it's gonna come to an end. The Freeze triple is too much to overcome. One of my greatest memories as a Cardinal fan, and David Freeze advances.
Well, what self-respecting selection committee chairman would ever admit that he got anything wrong?
Is this the 2008 tournament all over again?
So I have to follow my bracket because I made it.
Yeah.
So the 1 seed, Freeze, up against Wainwright's strike 3 looking. As tough a matchup as that is, Freeze wins because I seeded it that way. And so David Freeze's triple rolls to the finals.
So then, real quickly, the 2-3 matchup, I think we all have this. So I'm going to go Freeze home run over Berkman's game time single. Carson?
Freeze home run over game tying single.
Dad?
Berkman game tying single.
Wow.
Because if Berkman doesn't tie the game in that spot, if he makes an out, there is no Freeze homer.
So our
I have 1-3.
yeah, I have 1-3. Dad's 1-2. So our championship round. So me and Carson have the same. The Freeze triple versus the Freeze home run. Now I understand the home run doesn't happen without the triple. But again,
Do it.
as a Cardinals fan all my life, the most iconic moment of my lifetime is the Game 6 walk-off home run. I'm going 3-seeded David Freeze home run.
Somebody had to do it. And I have a feeling which Dad has followed his bracket to a T. So we will see what he decides here in the championship round. Does he get crazy? But the Freeze triple, I mean, how can we not? It's just one of those moments that you know exactly where you were. Like I said, I was 11 years old, Thursday night, about to go to my 6th grade schedule that next day. And I believe basketball season was starting the night of Game 7. We won't talk about North Marshall absolutely stomping us that night. We're going to talk about the night that the Cardinals won the 2011 World Series, and we don't get there if Freeze doesn't hit his triple in the ninth. David Freeze is your champion.
In the words of Joe Buck, they just won't go away. The Freeze triple won't go away. Even matched up against Berkman's. Again, Berkman can't tie it in the 10th if there is no 10th. So Berkman, love you. Freeze's triple with 2 outs and 2 strikes, driving home the fleet-footed Albert Pujols and Lance Berkman. Cardinals tie it. They won't go away, and thus eventually win the title.
So wow, turning time has just been such a good time. I know that went a little long, but while we have our dad here, I want to ask some questions. And so,
can I ask the easy one?
Yeah, go ahead. So we're gonna ask Dad a couple questions about me and Carson, and we'll get his honest input. And me and Carson are not gonna be offended. We just want to hear his input.
I mean, I feel like the question, Dad, that everybody wants to hear is who's your favorite? I mean, that's the most obvious question, right?
Right. Well, that's a fair question. Mom.
Mom wins.
So the
Respectable.
simp answer wins. So some questions that I wrote down. All right, Dad, who do you think is most like you?
Who is most like me? I would say Jackson. Jackson has a lot of my same characteristics.
Is that because he procrastinates in school and
could be?
Hey, like father, like son. All right, so I think this next question, I think it's also going to go to me.
It's a layup for you, isn't it?
Who is the funniest, Dad, between me and Carson?
Well, Carson has an awful lot of strong characteristics, but he's not always looking for the joke, and you are.
That is correct.
And that comes to a fault.
So again, that question is piggybacked on top of the one right before it. That's what makes you too much like me, rather than what can I learn from this lesson that the teacher's teaching. You're looking at and thinking about
how many laughs
what
can I
is
get?
funny.
Yeah.
What funny thing could be said here?
Exactly. All right, so this next one's probably gonna go to Carson, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Who is the smartest between the two of us?
Do we want to talk ACT scores here?
Well, it's Dad's answer.
Well, smartest.
So subjective, I know.
Right, yeah. I mean, standardized test for who, right? Although you didn't win the ACT battle, or you didn't win the GPA battle either.
I did not win the GPA battle.
Carson wins this one with ease, I think.
So I gave you another layup just for you. I gave you a layup question.
Wow, you threw one in there for me?
So who will be the most financially stable as husbands, as fathers in the future, who will be the most financially stable?
Before Dad answers this, I'm going to preface it with Dad still being on Jackson's bank account, and I've been on my own bank account since I was 18 years old.
I'm 20.
If that may set it up.
Sorry.
Well, I think we know that this is Carson. We're counting on him to take care of us both, aren't we, Jackson?
That's exactly right. So we got a 2-2 tie. Now this is going to decide.
Oh,
This
I
is
know
so
where we're going
heated.
there.
So
The greatest debated topic in this family.
Between me and Carson, Dad,
Let's take it away.
who is the best athlete / who's the better shooter between us?
Okay, there is no winner to the athlete question.
Because we're
We're your offspring.
Right.
Okay, so we'll just go.
yeah.
Best shooter between us two.
Best shooter. Best shooter.
Do we need to bring in stats?
Yeah, the stats, again, you got to talk about the per game attempts. Does that make a difference? Volume versus just strictly the ratio of makes and misses.
No, one thing I want to add real quick. We got to talk about my improvement from sophomore year to senior year.
I know about it. We don't have to talk about
Okay,
it.
I'm just saying. Just saying.
Yeah, don't go trying to make your own case.
Don't be fishing compliments.
I'm sorry.
Who's the best shooter? It's really not going to be an easy call there.
That's why I put it on there.
Right. I'm gonna say.
It's Jackson.
I'm not gonna say.
No,
he's backing out. Hey, let him.
No.
Let
I'm
him.
not gonna say.
Wow.
We're gonna end the show.
I'm not gonna say.
It's a
What do you want-
cliffhanger.
Are we ending a show with a tie?
What do you want me to say?
No.
What do you want me to say? Gabe Taylor?
Oh, shout out, Gabe.
I want an answer. I will not be offended. Carson will not be offended.
He's not
No,
giving an answer.
I'm not giving an answer.
Leave it down in the comment section who you
Proud
think's
of-
a better shooter.
I'm proud of both of you. I'm proud of both of you.
Well, thank you, Ed Chapman, aka Dad, for being on the episode. So thankful for you, Carson. Thank you again. This was such a fun episode. I know it's a little lengthier, but just so fun to do. Man2Man podcast, episode 2. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe on the YouTube. Give a rating on the Apple Podcast. And if you have any suggestions on what we should do, turn any time over, leave that in the comment section. And thank you again for listening.
We'll see you next week.
Go Redbirds.